In the opulent Crimson Palace, a young maid's journey from the lowest rung to the throne begins with a tragic event. The pure and gentle sister of the maid, who had served in the palace for over a decade, was about to leave the palace after being promised a marriage by a respected official, but fate had other plans. On the day of her departure, she was accused of seducing the emperor by the jealous and powerful imperial concubine, the cruel and domineering imperial concubine, who suffered from a congenital head ailment, was enraged when the emperor spent the night in the queen's chamber, and her head ailment flared up. There was a rumor that drinking fresh human blood could relieve the pain, and the poor maids were in constant fear. The sister, who had always been obedient, was wrongly framed. The imperial concubine's servant, Guimomo, was extremely vicious. She tortured the sister, denying her the chance to leave the palace and eventually causing her death. When the sister's body was presented to the maid was filled with grief and anger. She couldn't believe that her kind-hearted sister, who had always kept a low profile, could be accused of such a heinous crime. The maid questioned the unfairness of the world and the palace. Why could the imperial concubine, just because of her noble birth and high status, trample on the dignity and lives of others at will? Determined to seek justice for her sister, the maid decided to stay in the palace. She was then assigned to serve the imperial concubine closely. One day, the maid found out from the doctor that the imperial concubine was pregnant. She informed the imperial concubine, which brought great joy to the latter. The news was expected to draw the emperor's attention back to the imperial concubine. However, another doctor later confirmed that the imperial concubine was not pregnant. The imperial concubine was furious and blamed the maid for the false news. Guimomo, who had been the main culprit in her sister's death, also tried to frame the maid, but the maid was not as helpless as they thought. She revealed her identity to Guimomo and avenged her sister by killing Guimomo. She knew that as long as the imperial concubine didn't care about Guimomo's death, no one would question it. After this incident, the imperial concubine was in a bad situation. The emperor hadn't visited her for half a month. Desperate, she forced her maids to invite the emperor. The maid, named Zhiyao, came up with a bold plan. She used herself as bait to attract the emperor. Her friend was worried that she would become an enemy of the imperial concubine, but Zhiyao was determined. She believed it was time to stand up against the imperial concubine, to fight for the justice that had been denied to her and her sister. When the emperor was on his way to the imperial concubine's chamber, the imperial concubine planned to kill the maids who had invited the emperor to keep them silent. But the emperor's arrival interrupted her cruel act. The maid's courage and determination in the face of the powerful imperial concubine and the unfair rules of the palace